Point. There was still no response. A faint yet crude smile crept back onto the man's face. Given that he knew what sort of living hell she had been through, it was obvious why he was sneering. Otherwise, why would he have thrown her outside, ready for disposal? Good luck did not repeat itself, because regularly occurring phenomena could not be considered good luck. Indeed, if one considered her grabbing of Seba's pants to be good luck, then she would not have any more. In her case, her sole piece of good fortune was the fact that Seba's had stepped into this alley, and it was now over. Everything else all rested on how much she wanted to survive. That was not luck. Faintly. Yes. The girl's lips moved faintly. It was not the natural movement of breathing. It was a willed, conscious action. Seba's only response to hearing those words was a big nod. I do not believe in helping those who can only pray for others to save them. However, if you struggle and strive to live, Seba's fingers moved slowly to shut the girl's eyes. Do not be afraid. Rest. You are under my protection now. The girl closed her clouded eyes, as though wrapped in a warm shroud of compassion. The other man could not believe what he had just seen, and so he blurted out the first thing that came to mind. It can't be, I didn't hear anything, the man wanted to say, but he was frozen in place. Are you calling me a liar? He did not know when Seba's had stood up, but now his razor-sharp gaze transfixed the man. Those were fearsome eyes. Those vicious eyes stopped the man's breathing, as though they possessed the ability to physically crush his heart within his chest. Are you saying I would tell a lie for the likes of you? No. The man's throat croaked, and then he gulped. His eyes moved, fixating on Seba's arms. He must have remembered the consequences of getting carried away. Then, I'll be taking her with me. I'll wait. No, please wait, the man shouted. Seba's glanced at him out of the corner of his eye. What is it now? Trying to buy more time? No, that's not it. It's more like, if you take her away, things will be very bad. You'll be inviting disaster upon you and your master. Have you heard of 8 Fingers? Seba's had heard that name during his intelligence gathering. They were a criminal organization which ruled the kingdom from the shadows. So won't you help me out here? Please pretend you didn't see anything. If you take her away, they'll count it as a failure on my part, and they'll punish me. Seeing that the man was trying to cajole him now that the use of force had failed, Seba's glared icily at him and spoke in equally frigid tones, I'm taking her with me. Come on, give me a break, man. They'll kill me. I might as well kill him now, Seba's mused. The man was still weeping as Seba's weighed the pros and cons of ending the man's life. Seba's had originally thought the man was just trying to buy time for help to arrive, but that ought not to be the case given his attitude. However, he could not think of a reason otherwise. Why did you not call for help? The man's eyes went wide in shock, and then he hastily answered. The long and short of it was that if the woman got away, while he was calling for help, it would essentially be telling his people that he had made an unsalvageable mistake. In addition, he did not think he could beat Seba's even if he called his colleagues over to help. That was why he was trying to persuade Seba's to change his mind. Even Seba's could not muster up his motivation in front of that utterly pathetic attitude, and his killing intent vanished. That said, he still did not intend to give the girl over to the man. That being the case, then why don't you run away? Please be reasonable. Where would I get the money to run? I do not consider money to be more important than life. However, I shall provide in that respect. The man's face lit up at Seba's words. Perhaps killing him really would be safer, but at the same time, letting him flee with all his strength might be able to buy them some time. He had to use that time to treat her and bring her somewhere safe. More to the point, killing him here might lead others to search for her, since she would be missing. In addition, it might cause problems for the people close to her, given that he did not know the circumstances which had led to her present state. At this point, Seba's began wondering why he had even started on this dangerous course in the first place. The truth was that he did not understand the stirrings in his heart which had led him to rescue this woman. Just about any other denizen of Nazareth would have ignored her to avoid getting involved in troublesome matters. They would have packed up and left this place. Saving someone in trouble is common sense. Sabas decided to ignore that phrase which had inexplicably surfaced in his heart and said, "Take this, hire an adventurer and flee." Sabas took out a pouch. The man looked at it, doubt in his eyes. The sight of such a small pouch was probably not very reassuring. In the next moment, the man's eyes followed the coins which fell to the alley's floor, fixated on that silver-like radiance. Those were platinum coins rolling around on the ground, 10 of them in all, each worth 10 times as much as gold. Run away with all your strength, understand? Also, I have some questions for you. Do you have time to answer them? It's fine. I've already told them that I'll be heading out to DISP, to take her to the temple. I should be able to spare some time. I understand. Walk with me, then. With that, Sabas raised his chin to indicate the man should follow. Then he picked up the girl and strode forth. Part 4 Middle Fire Month, 8th month, 26th day 1858. Sabas currently resided in a high-end residential district of the royal capital, with good security. This particular dwelling was smaller than the mansions on either side, as though it were built as a home for the servants of the families which inhabited the surrounding buildings. However, it was still too large for Sabas and Solution alone. They had rented such a large place for a reason, of course, since they were posing as members of a wealthy household from afar. They could not possibly live in a rundown old house. For that reason, and because they did not have any credentials to present or any connections, they had to pay several times more than the going price to the builders' union when leasing the home. In addition, they had to pay in one lump sum, which amounted to quite a large expense. Sabas received a prompt reception when he arrived at the house and walked in the front door. That someone was dressed in white, she was one of Sabas' subordinates, Solution Epsilon of the Pleiades battle maids. The house's other residents included shadow demons and gargoyles, but they were assigned to sentry duties, and would not come out to meet him. "Welcome BAC," Solution cut her words off mid-speech, and she had even frozen mid-bow. She glared at the object Sabas was carrying with eyes that were colder than usual. "Sabas-sama, what is that?" "I picked her up." Solution did not reply to that terse answer. However, the air seemed to get heavier around them. "I see. I do not believe it is a present for me, so may I ask how you intend to dispose of that?" "Well now. Could you start by healing her wounds?" "Healing." Solution looked at the girl Sabas was holding. Once she understood, she shook her head and stared at Sabas. If that were the case, would it not suffice to bring her to the temple? Indeed. Silly me, I completely forgot about that. Seeing that Sabas was completely unmoved, Solution fixed her cold gaze on him. Their eyes met for a second, and in the end it was Solution who blinked first. "Shall I throw it away, then?" "No. I've brought her back. We should think about how best to handle her." "I understand." Solution was the type who lacked expressions of their own, but her face now could have been used as a mask. Even Sabas could not read the emotions dwelling within her eyes. All he could tell was that Solution was thoroughly displeased with the present circumstances. "Could you please perform a health examination on her?" "I understand." "Then, I shall immediately." "Isn't that too?" The girl meant nothing to Solution, but even so, giving her a checkup at the front door was hardly a good thing. There ought to be a spare room inside. "Could you perform the examination there?" Solution nodded silently by way of reply. Neither of them spoke as they brought the girl to the guest room. Granted, Sabas and Solution had never been the type for conversation, but that did not explain the awkwardness between them. Solution opened the door for Sabas, who was holding the girl in both hands. The heavy curtains were closed and so the room was dark, but it did not feel stuffy in the least. The door had been opened many times before, so the air inside was fresh, and the interior was spotlessly clean. The room itself was lit by thin ribbons of moonlight streaming in between the gap in the curtains. After entering, Sabas gingerly laid the girl down upon the clean sheets of the bed within. He had infused the girl with ki, and performed some basic healing. However, she remained as motionless as a corpse. Then, Solution carelessly stripped the girl of the cloth which covered her, revealing a bruised and battered body. That ghastly sight should have made for difficult viewing, but Solution's expression was unchanged, and she had a dull, disinterested look in her eyes. Solution, I'll leave the rest to you. With that, Sabas left the room. Solution did not look like she wanted to call him back as she began her diagnosis. Now that he was in the corridor, he should not have heard Solution, as she quietly said, "How foolish." Her mumblings vanished into the corridor, and naturally nobody replied to them. Sabas stroked his beard without thinking about it. Why had he saved that girl? Even he could not explain why. Was it pity? No, that was not it. Why had he saved her? Sabas was a butler, and he was also in charge of Nazarik's manservants. His loyalty belonged to each of the 41 supreme beings. He owed his faithful service to the guildmaster, who had taken the name of Ains Ulgaun. His loyalty was genuine. He could confidently say that he would gladly throw his life away in service to the Supreme One. However, if, hypothetically speaking, he had to choose only one of the 41 supreme beings to obey, Sabas would pick the man called Touch Me without hesitation. Diamond Suit, Diamond Suit, Diamond Suit, he was the mightiest being in Ains Ulgaun, and the one who had made Sabas. He was a world champion, and an incomparable figure of fame. The guild had primarily flourished by piking. Who would dare believe that Touch Me, of the original 9, had founded the group which predated the guild in order to protect the weak? Yet, that was the truth. When Momonga had been repeatedly piked and nearly quit the game in anger, it was Touch Me who had saved him. When Bukabukagama could not find anyone to adventure with her due to her looks, it was Touch Me who had reached out to her. Diamond Suit, Diamond Suit, Diamond Suit, the lingering will of that man was the invisible chain, which now bound Sabas. Could this be considered a curse? Those words were terribly rude. If any of the other beings who served Ains Ulgaun, who had been created by the 41 supreme beings, were present and heard these words, they might have well attacked him on the spot for his lack of respect. It is wrong to show pity and offer aid to those who do not belong to Ains Ulgaun, Sabas muttered grimly. That was only to be expected. Every member of Nazarik, save those who had been programmed otherwise by the 41 supreme beings, like the head maid, Pistonia S. Wenko, firmly believed that abandoning those who did not belong to Ains Ulgaun was the right course of action. For instance, he had once heard from Solution that one of her fellow battle maids, Pleiades, Lupus Regina, got along very well with a girl from Karn village. However, Sabas was abundantly aware that if anything arose, Lupus Regina would cast that girl aside without hesitation. That was not because she was cruel. If the supreme beings ordered them to die, they would kill themselves without delay. If the supreme beings ordered someone dead, they would kill them, even if their target was a friend of theirs. On the other hand, anyone who did not understand this would receive looks of pity from their comrades. Making a decision based on human, in other words, worthless, sentiments was the wrong thing to do. But what about himself? Had he taken the correct course of action? Just as Sabas was about to bite through his lip, Solution stepped out of the room. Her face was still a blank mask. How did it go? She is suffering from syphilis and 2 other sexually transmitted diseases. Several of her ribs and fingers are broken. The tendons on her right arm and left leg have been severed. Her upper and lower incisors have been pulled out. Her organ function is diminished, and she has a fissured anus. There are signs of drug addiction. In addition, there are countless traces of contusions and lacerations. This concludes the basic summary of her condition. Do you require a more detailed explanation? No, I think not. The important thing is, can she be healed? Easily. Sabas had also expected that unhesitating reply. Healing abilities could even help someone who had all their limbs severed. In fact, Sabas could use ki to heal just about any form of physical injury. The truth was that if he had not been worried about emergencies, or the truth getting out, he could have healed the old lady's twisted ankle on the spot. That said, while his key could heal physical injuries, it could not help with poisoning or diseases as well, because Sabas had not learned those skills. Therefore, he had to ask Solution to help in that aspect. I'll leave it to you then. If healing magic needs to be used, perhaps it might be better to look up Pistonia-sama. There's no need to go to that trouble. Solution, you have a scroll of healing magic, do you not? After seeing Solution nod, Sabas continued, use that then. Sabas-sama. That scroll was bestowed upon us by the Supreme One. It should not be used on a mere human being. Indeed. He should have thought of some other way instead. It would be best to heal her wounds and stabilize her first, before curing her addiction, and disease afterwards. However, he did not know if he had the time for that. If she was dying because of her addiction or diseases, healing her would be an exercise in futility, unless said healing was constantly reapplied. After thinking about this, Sabas handed out an order to Solution in a voice of steel, the better to keep anyone from learning his true intentions. Do it. Solution narrowed her eyes, and a reddish-black flame seemed to flare in their depths. However, Solution bowed her head in acknowledgement to hide that change. I understand. I am to restore that female to a pristine condition. In other words, I will revert her body to the state it was before she engaged in those activities. Am I correct? After receiving Saba's approval, Solution bowed again. I shall do so at once. Then, could I trouble you to boil some water, and wipe her down after the treatment? I shall purchase something to eat. Nobody here needed to eat, and nobody here could cook. Neither did anyone here possess magic items, which eliminated the need to eat. Thus, he had to obtain food for her. Sabas-sama. Healing the body is a simple task, but I do not possess the ability to heal mental traumas. Solution paused here, and then looked straight at Sabas before continuing. If there is a need to heal such traumas, I feel it would be better to ask Ain-sama to lend his aid. Will you not ask him to do so? There is no need to trouble Ain-sama. We will leave the mental symptoms for later. Solution bowed deeply again. Then she opened the door and entered the room. As Sabas watched her leave, he slowly leaned against a nearby wall. How should he deal with her? The best way was to wait until she had been treated, while the man was fleeing, for instance, and then take her to where she wanted to go and release her. He had to pick a location that was sufficiently far away from the royal capital. Telling her to walk out from here would not only be too dangerous, but far too cruel. It would be no help at all. Still, was all this really the right thing for him, Sabas-tien, butler of Nazarick, to do? Sabas sighed heavily. If only that would allow him to physically expel the worries that had built up within his heart. However, it did not. His heart was pounding, and his thoughts were a blur. How foolish I was. To think that I, Sabas, would do all that for a human being. But no matter how hard he thought, he could not come to a conclusion. Thus, Sabas decided to stop seeking an answer. Right now, he ought to start by solving the simple problems. It might only be delaying the inevitable, but this was the best that Sabas could come up with at the moment. Diamond suit, diamond suit, diamond suit. Solution changed the shape of her finger. The slender digit lengthened, becoming a syringe-like structure that was several millimeters thick. As a Shoggoth, Solution had always been able to make great alterations to her shape, so altering the thickness of her fingers was child's play. She glanced at the door, and once she sensed he was no longer outside, she quietly approached the woman on the bed. Since Sabas-sama has approved it, I might as well take care of this unpleasant business quickly. You would probably prefer it that way, no? Besides, it is not as though you are aware of it, are you? Solution reached inside her body with her untransformed hand, and withdrew a scroll stored within herself. That scroll was not the only item Solution had concealed within herself. In addition to scrolls and other expendable magic items, she also contained quite a number of weapons, protectives, and other war gear. This was nothing out of the ordinary considering her body could store several human beings. Solution looked at the unconscious woman. She was uninterested in her appearance. Only one thought ran through her mind. That was, this human doesn't look like it would taste good. This body looked like a walking corpse. It probably would not thrash wildly and delight Solution, even if she melted at it with corrosives. I could understand Sabas-sama's intentions if he intended to make her my toy after she recovered, but this. She was familiar with Saba's personality, since he was the leader of the Pleiades battle maids. He would never permit such a thing. After all, he had not permitted her to capture and eat any humans during their journey, save the ones who had tried to ambush them. If Sabas-sama had rescued her on orders from the Supreme One, then I would gladly obey, but is it really worth expending a valuable asset from the Supreme Beings on a mere human like this? Solution shook her head and dispelled those thoughts. Should I eat you before Sabas-sama returns? Solution broke the seal and unfurled the scroll. The spell contained within was called Heal. It was a high-end healing magic of the 6th tier, and it could restore a great deal of health in addition to healing various diseases and other abnormal status conditions. Under normal circumstances, using the magic of the scroll would require levels in the appropriate job class. In other words, one would need cleric-type class levels to use clerical spells, which were divine magic. However, certain thief-type classes had the ability to emulate a class and use magical devices by deceiving them, such as with a scroll. As an assassin, Solution had levels in several thief-type classes. Thus, she was able to use this scroll of Heal, which he would not be able to use otherwise. Just in case, I should probably put her to sleep. After that, Solution used a skill to synthesize a sleeping poison cum muscle relaxant, which she injected into the girl. Diamond suit, middle fire month, 8th month, 26th day 1937. Sabas returned from buying food just as Solution stepped out of the room. She had a steaming bucket in each hand, each of which had several washcloths inside. The cloths were filthy and the hot water was black, indicating the unsanitary conditions that girl had been in. Thank you for your efforts. I trust there were no problems with the healing process. Yes. It has all been taken care of, and there were no hiccups. However, there were no clothes for her to wear, so I selected an outfit for her at random. Do you approve? Of course. That will do. I see. The sleeping agent should have worn off by now, but if you have no further directives, I will be taking my leave. Thank you very much, Solution. Solution nodded by way of response, and slipped past Sabas. After watching her leave, Sabas knocked on the door. There was no response, but he sensed someone moving inside, so he quietly pushed the door open. The girl sleeping on the bed had just regained consciousness. She sat up, still drowsy. She was completely different from how she had been before. Her filthy blonde hair now glowed with a beautiful luster. Her emaciated features had regained their fullness. Her cracked lips were now a healthy pink. On the whole, she was beautiful, although her looks might be better described as a soft-spoken prettiness rather than being drop-dead sexy. Her age was now plain to see. She looked like she was in her late teens, between 15 to 19, although the shadow on her face from her years in her man-made hell made her seem older than she actually was. Solution had given her a white negligee to wear, but it was plain and unadorned, lacking frills or lace or other such attractive decorations. I trust you are completely recovered. How do you feel? There was no answer. Her hollow eyes did not seem strong enough to look at Sabas. However, he did not mind, but continued speaking. No, the truth was, he had not expected her to answer him. That was because he could tell that her blank expression belonged to someone who was distracted and crestfallen. Are you hungry? I brought something to eat. He had bought the meal from a restaurant, bowl and all. The porridge in the wooden bowl was made with colored soup stock. It had some sesame oil in it to taste, and on the whole it radiated a mouth-watering aroma. The girl's face twitched in response to the fragrance. Come, help yourself. Seeing that the girl had not yet completely withdrawn into her own world, Sabas placed the wooden bowl and its spoon before the girl. She did not move, but Sabas did not urge her to eat. A third party would probably have started to get frustrated at this point. After a long time had passed, the girl's hands moved slowly, the movements of one afraid of being brutally beaten. The wounds on the outside had been completely healed, but the pain which had been branded into her memories still remained. She picked up the wooden spoon, dipped it into the porridge, then brought it to her mouth and wolfed it down. Normal porridge could be very rich and thick. Sabas had asked the storekeeper to finely slice the 14 different ingredients, and then cook them over a slow fire to make something that could be swallowed without chewing. Her throat worked, and the porridge slid into her belly. The girl's eyes trembled slightly. It was a small movement, but it was sufficient to convert her from an intricately made doll into a real human being. Her other hand trembled as it moved to take the bowl from Sabas. Sabas supported the bowl, shifting it to a place which was easier for her to reach. The girl grabbed the bowl to herself, then took scoop after forceful scoop of the porridge as she devoured it. If the porridge had not been cooled until it was just right, her frantic feeding frenzy would probably have scalded her tongue. Broth leaked from her mouth and stained the blouse of her pajamas, but she did not care. She was more drinking than eating it. After finishing the bowl with a speed that was completely unlike her previous self, the girl held onto the bowl and exhaled deeply. With her humanity restored, her eyelids closed slowly and ponderously. The combination of a full belly, fresh clothes and a clean body combined to soothe her spirit, and she began to feel fatigue kicking in. However, just as her eyes narrowed into a line, they snapped open, and she curled up into a frightened ball. Was she afraid to close her eyes, or was she afraid that what she was experiencing would vanish like a popped bubble? Or was it something else? Sabas was watching her from the side, but he did not know. Perhaps even she did not know. In order to comfort her, Sabas gently said, "Your body must need sleep. Don't push yourself and have a good rest. You will not come to any harm as long as you stay here. I guarantee this, when you wake up, you will still be in that bed." The girl's eyes moved for the first time and looked directly at Sabas. Her blue pupils were dull and lacked vitality. However, those were not the eyes of a corpse, but a living person. Her small mouth opened and closed. Then it opened and closed again. This repeated itself several times. Sabas watched her tenderly. He did not urge her to do anything, he simply watched in silence. At last, her mouth opened and several nearly inaudible noises emerged. Then, she quickly added, Thank you. The first words she spoke were not to ask about her present circumstances, but to thank him. Having grasped part of her character from that, Sabas gave her a genuine smile, not the usual fake one he typically wore. "It's fine. Since I have rescued you, I will do my best to guarantee your safety." The girl's eyes widened a bit more, and her mouth began to tremble. Her blue eyes moistened, and then overflowed. The girl opened her mouth and then wept piteously. Soon, he could hear the sound of cursing through the crying. She cursed her fate. She resented the fact that it had ever existed. She was filled with hatred that nobody had helped her until now. Her wrath was directed at Sabas as well. "If only you had saved me earlier." That sort of thing. After receiving Sabas' kindness, after being humanely treated, it was as though part of her had broken down under the strain of everything she had endured until now. No, perhaps it might be better to say that after having her humanity restored, she could no longer bear her painful memories. She tore at her hair, and the strands snapped quietly as she pulled. Countless golden fibers were tangled around her slender fingers. The porridge bowl and the spoon rolled to the bed. Sabas watched silently as she went mad. Her hatred and curses was directed at the wrong person. She was clearly looking for a scapegoat. Perhaps said person would be unhappy, maybe even angry. However, there was no anger on his face. His wrinkles were filled with kindness. Sabas leaned forward and hugged her. It was like a father embracing his child. There was no malice there, only an unending kindness. Her body stiffened for a moment. Then, as she realized how different this embrace was from the men who sought only to violate her flesh, her body slowly relaxed. "It's fine." Sabas repeated those words like a mantra, gently patting her on the back, like he was comforting a crying child. The girl moaned, and then, as she slowly came to understand what Sabas was saying, she buried her face into Sabas' chest and cried all the louder. However, the context of her tears was slightly different from just now. Diamond suit, diamond suit, diamond suit. She finally managed to stop crying after some time had passed, and the front of Sabas' clothes had been soaked by her tears. She slowly extricated herself from Sabas' arms and lowered her head to hide her blushing face. I'm sorry. Please do not worry about it. Being able to offer one's chest to a lady for support is a mark of pride for a man. Sabas extracted a clean handkerchief from his breast pocket and handed it to her. "Please use this." "But lending me this clean?" the girl asked nervously. Sabas reached out to cup her chin, then gently raised her face. She had no idea what had happened, but just as she was freezing up with fear,